Hitting revenue targets is hard and requires constant hustle. Last quarter's success is already forgotten. Learn the mindset and tactics of today's most successful revenue producers in B2B marketing and sales. We call this the revenue hustle. I'm your host, Tom Hessen, navigating you on this journey. Today's show is sponsored by 9 Lenses, an interactive assessment platform that enables you to add instant value to your buyers and allows your sales team to tailor business conversations focused on the pain points each and every time. Check them out at 9lenses.com.
All right, this is Tom Hessen, your host of the Revenue Hustle, and I have the distinct pleasure of inviting Jen Spencer to the show. Jen, welcome to the show.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here.
Well, I'm glad to have this conversation. I've had the opportunity to get to talk to you a few times now, and I know you're very passionate on LinkedIn and just in sales in general. And so I just had to invite you on and just kind of learn a little bit more about you and your views on sales. And so I'm so happy to have that opportunity. Why don't you go ahead and just introduce yourself and kind of your role today as Chief Revenue Officer at SmartBug Media.
Would love to. Thank you so much. So Jen Spencer, CRO at SmartBug Media. SmartBug is an intelligent inbound marketing agency helping clients with their revenue growth goals through marketing strategy and execution. And I've been with SmartBug for almost 4 years. Before I came on board here, I was actually a client twice at 2 different software companies. So I have been living and breathing marketing and sales and the intersection of those two for quite a while now. With this new role becoming the CRO, I now also oversee client services. And so I have another kind of foot or arm or appendage of some kind inside of customer success,
Yes.
Which is really exciting.
Awesome. Well, you have a lot of experience, and I saw that, and we'll talk more about that as we kind of go through today. But you know, as the CEO of 9 Lenses, we're kind of in that marketing and sales from a technology standpoint. I think it's very interesting, just as you talk about marketing and sales and now customer success, you really do own the entire life cycle. So you have a lot of opinions on what goes into a good customer journey and to drive revenue. So I'm just going to open it up. You guys know we do these revenue rules. So Jen, what is your revenue rule?
So one revenue rule is to bubble wrap the customer in the sales to customer success handoff.
True, spoken like a true CRO. Because if you were a VP of sales, you probably never would have said that. So tell me, how did you come to that? I mean, obviously you kind of stepped into that one.
Yeah, well, I listen, I was an advocate of that, of really taking care of that handoff but just in the time I've spent at SmartBug and watching, you know, going through those kind of sales to CS handoffs, I always knew it was important, but it's of course not until you now are leading the people and you're owning the KPIs around customer satisfaction and churn and upsells and cross sells that you realize how critical that handoff is. And you know, there was a time in my career where I would have said all of that can be automated. And there's no reason for kind of any sort of human to human connection conversation. And maybe if you work in a really transactional type of sale, then that's going to be the case. My rules come from selling complex solutions that are highly customized to that buyer's needs. And so the more complex the solution is, and the more unique each customer is from one to another, the more important it is to have kind of human to human handoffs. And it's a mix of, I believe in a mix of using technology to your advantage so that your time is spent really wisely and you're not verbally passing over details that can easily be gleaned from a CRM or could be sent as an automated type of internal email notification or report by pulling in properties from your CRM that were collected all throughout the sales process. Like that's a great way to use software, right?
Because I know you're, especially at SmartBug, I mean, you guys are doing a lot of HubSpot, you know, implementations, design, rollouts. And so you probably know how to use those systems very well. But you're saying there's limitations, obviously, to all that's learned. And I think another point that I wanted to come back to is like the types of products that you've been selling, complex, highly configured or customized to the client needs, how much you learn in the sales process, right? Because I think
Yeah.
it starts by just how much time and effort you spend in the sales cycle. It's hard to document all that stuff, or you need to do your best to A, capture it, B, hand it off in the right way so it not gets lost. But is that right? Just because of how much you're learning in the sales cycle?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's you can kind of templatize and you can templatize a lot of things, and you should, whatever you possibly can, but it's the context behind the answer, the context behind the reason that gives you a step ahead when that customer success professional is now starting to work with your new customer. And understanding some of the background, the why behind each choice that they're making. Sometimes it's the personalities or some of the internal struggles that that organization may have had, and there might not be an appropriate place or space for that to live inside of your CRM. But it's things that in the sales process, sales representatives, we get close to our buyers. The more time we spend with them, we often become friends. I mean, you hear people, they become friends with each other, and those relationships that are built. There's a lot of value that happens when a salesperson really is running in a relationship and a kind of a sale. And there's quite a bit that needs to get shared over, so that the customer feels like, okay, you really understand me. There hasn't been an interruption in my relationship with your company, with your brand, and we're not also wasting time. I don't have to rehash everything I've already shared, and you're really able to take it from here and run with it. There's nothing more frustrating in the buyer's journey, that experience, than feeling like you have to repeat yourself from
Right.
SDR to AE, from AE to CSM, from CSM to support specialist. No one wants to have to
No.
relive it. It's a beautiful thing when it's like everyone that's touching my account already knows what's going on with me. And in the early days of integrated solutions and integrated teams, I think customers just appreciated this, that connectivity. I think now it's expected.
Yes. And I think it also helps to ensure that you hit your goals within customer success, right? So I mean, there's a customer benefit, but then there's also a monetary benefit in terms of the better experience, the renewal rate, right? Because again, you can
Absolutely.
identify problems before they happen, or at least keep the ship going in the right direction, right, with the customer. And there's not just some sort of, oh, I didn't realize that, and then you kind of have to step back and and kind of go through that. I mean, is that something that you've, witnessed firsthand? Just you try to fix this, in your new role. I guess it's not so new anymore, but did it start there, and kind of now are you educating customers, as part of your, sort of the services you're providing, or some of the expertise that you're sharing?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely the intent. It's intensified. The need for this kind of collaboration has intensified. And what we've noticed is that when we do have these stronger kind of handoffs that are more contextual, and we're spending that time in that 30-minute meeting, we're not talking about the super simple transactional types of things. Those are getting passed over through automation, but we're spending that time talking about the health of that customer and what kind of trust the customer is putting in our hands and where we fit in to everything else that they're doing. Those customers have a more successful onboarding, which means we're able to achieve ROI for them faster, which means
Hmm.
they're happier, which means they're stickier, and then they refer us business because they are then really becoming true evangelists of our work earlier and earlier in our
Right.
relationship with them.
That's an awesome way to state the benefits of making that investment. So how did you get there? So was it's technology, obviously. So how did you sit that, like, step back and say, all
Mhm.
right, how did you kind of construct the process that you have now, like between the technologies
Yeah.
and what you focus on? Like, how did you? I'm sure it was a bit of a process yourself, but how did you kind of go about making that change?
Honestly, it was from reading post-mortem churn notes. It was looking at, when if we lose a customer and we read the report of, okay, because we do an exit interview with our customers to find out why they're leaving. And we always look at, well, what could we have done better? And there's a component in the sales process typically. Sometimes there might be something from a marketing perspective, right? Like maybe a misconstrued, misunderstood message or something, but typically not. Usually it's something in the sales process that we might have missed or skipped. And that was really critical to know, or a red flag that we ignored. Sometimes sales reps ignore red flags when maybe they want to, they're a little bit far removed from that number that they're chasing. So there's that. And then there's also, of course, like on the client services team of what are some of the things we did. Maybe we let our own process get in the way of their success, or there was something with the relationship we missed, or something with the content, right? Like there's always, we try to inspect it from like every angle possible, to see what we could have done better. Even in a case where if a customer says, well, listen, I would have stayed with you, we got acquired, or we this or we that, or we're finally, we're bringing this in house and thank you so much, we still look introspectively at like, well, okay, sure, but looking back on this relationship, what could we have done? And from that, we were able to refine a bit of our sales discovery process. And so it did start with looking at, well, how do we keep customers longer? Or how could we improve that customer experience? And then going back to the sales process and then implementing some some changes there. So getting the feedback from our leaders on the customer success side was really a big catalyst for
Yeah.
making some of these changes.
Wow. And so it sounds like you learned things you didn't anticipate, right? Just from learning about, you had to do the work, right? You had to dig in, kind of really understand why they were leaving, because that's not always shared or not easily volunteered if you don't ask. You really have to kind of get in there. And then that led all the way back up through the sales process to the discovery, maybe a little bit in marketing. So it kind of streamlined. Right, because again, I think one of the points that I took away is like if you don't do discovery right, you may not get the right fit customer, right? Or you may not fully understand their problem, which automatically puts them at risk for a not a good experience, right? In the term that follows.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So there was almost always something that we look back and go, oh, wait, okay, we could have done this, or we should have asked that, or, we should have like pulled on that thread. Um, and, yeah, you do kind of learn, you learn a lot, and it's always evolving, right? So we
Yeah,
did like a big change. We did a big kind of revamp in January for our 2021 sales kickoff. And that was kind of the first, but it doesn't mean it's the last. It doesn't mean it's the last
sure.
kind of iteration, right? It's something we're constantly working on.
Now, how did your teams respond to either this additional process, maybe additional work now in the sales process, having to kind of fill out the forms or whatnot, rather than just kind of
Mhm.
showing up and like just spewing at the mouth, for 30 minutes. And I'm sure customer success sales may have had different views on, the perceived benefit or outcome there. But how'd the team take it as you kind of roll these things out?
The team took it really well, actually, because I ended up eliminating a lot of manual work for them. So we leaned into our tool set. So build out playbooks inside of HubSpot CRM, and with each response being a property on that contact record. And then with that being a property on the contact record, now it can be automated. So we can easily kind of create different reports or different different messages that come in from using those fields. So more work in theory up front. I mean, honestly, it's like the same kind of stuff that the sales rep should have been getting to begin with,
Right.
but just a little bit more of a polished view so we can see exactly what they might have missed, as opposed to just being like free form notes. And then, but then on the back end, we were having the sales reps fill out just a worksheet that was in Google Docs that was kind of to guide the conversation. So it was a duplication of effort. And so I originally went into the project thinking about my sales team and thinking, how do I eliminate as much additional admin work as possible for them? So I went, all right, well, dudes, if you do your job right the first time, like, and you get the critical information that already know you need, but I make it a requirement, then you're going to have less work later. And then when you do your handoff, you can focus on like having a conversation that actually matters, as
I
opposed to
see.
just trading like low level details.
Facts.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's one that you wrote down, is that you're now having a more meaningful discussion because you're not focused on all the nitty-gritty details, transactional stuff that you can just easily capture and they can look up or just print out or something, look at while you're having the more meaningful dialogue.
Yep.
And I assume that in this case that the customer success person is responsible for the renewal and the sales rep is not.
That is correct.
Right.
That is
Okay.
correct. Yep, that is correct. So.
And so how long has this process been in place now, or at least in its more or less current form, and what have you seen as a result of that?
It's been in place for 4 months, give or take a handful of weeks. And the results so far have been that the new customers that we're bringing on are better aligned with our ideal customer profile and are experiencing fewer challenges during their first few weeks in working with us.
Gotcha. And I think one of the things, again, we're having these conversations at Nine Lenses, and I don't think you ever stop having the conversation about who is your ideal customer profile, because if you don't get that right, process be damned, you're going to struggle to get the fit or the value or whatever it may be. And it sounds like that was this whole thing just helped crystallize, right? Reading the notes, understanding why they churn. You probably tweaked your ideal customer profile, and now you've made sure you've captured that all the way through the process, right? And that obviously just lends itself to a better overall experience. Is that fair? Is that
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that's hard for us, and I feel I empathize with my sales team because I was one of our first sales reps, right? When I first came here, this is what I did. I sold services, and we can help pretty much everyone. Like there's really very few people we can't help. And so you get on a call with someone and you really like them and that you love what they're trying to do and we can help them, but it takes a lot of discipline to say, okay, wait a minute, but you're really not going to be the best fit for working with because of the way we work, because of the way we operate, because of the way they operate and what their needs are. Even though we can help, we probably aren't the best fit to help them. And so that is challenging. It's like we have a really clear ICP, but there's still this gray, right? And there's like kind of this like gut check of like, well, there's areas where we go, well, these are red flags and none of them are like showstoppers, but if you have a certain number of them combined together, then it could be. And there's just all these nuances to the relationship. And it's a much harder from a leadership perspective. It's much harder to coach and support your team if you don't have all of the information. And so building out the playbooks and making that part of the sales discovery process, and leaning on other enrichment tools that we have and using our tech stack, that's helped us have also quality conversations with our prospects during the sales process. So we're not wasting their time, right? Having low-level conversations about things that they can answer for us ahead of the call through like a really simple, type of a survey or something that we might be able to glean, or an assessment, or something we might be able to glean, we might be able to glean from ZoomInfo or what have you, and we can quickly validate and then move on to having a discussion that actually adds value during the sales process for that customer.
Yeah. No, that's great. No, this is great. This is something it's a unique perspective because not everyone gets to own both new customers and renewals. Do
Hmm.
you also own marketing as well as the CRO? Or is there
I
you do,
do.
you own marketing too?
Yep, I do. I do.
Okay, you got all the continents over there. Well, that's so you own the whole end-to-end process. So I mean, it's great visibility, which I think is what makes this work because a lot of times that handoff can be challenging, just like marketing to
Mm.
sales handoff can be equally, because it's usually leader A to leader B and then to leader C. So streamlining that under one leader certainly can make those friction points um, a lot smoother. So no, great job. I'm going to call you later as we kind of scale out this process on our side with our
That's good.
HubSpot environment. Well, I know you had another area that you're very passionate about, and I really want to talk about this. So let's jump right into what is your second revenue rule?
We kind of backed into this in a way, but it's don't be afraid to slow down the sales process.
And I said, that's crazy, right? You're gonna throw yourself out of the sales profession. I mean, that's like heresy right there. It's always go faster, right? Faster.
Yep.
But I know exactly where this is probably going to go. But I really want to hear about this. So
Yeah.
go ahead, tell us more.
Sure. So when I look back on any kind of new customer relationship that like turned out not so great, we always went too fast in the sales
Mm,
process every single dang time. Um, and 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 most of the time, Tom, it's the customer pushing. It's
to
the
go fast.
customer being like, we need this, I need this, I have to buy this by this time, my money budget expires by this date. And we're like, okay, go, 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 right? Like just thinking about that close happens a lot at the end of the year, right? And so but that's where so many mistakes happen because that's where you make assumptions. The customer makes assumptions, the buyer, I guess, before the customer makes assumptions about the value you provide or how you work. They tend to have blinders on. They've talked themselves into deciding that you're the best fit and you're going to be able to help them achieve their goals. And then they oversell themselves, and in turn they then oversell their teams. And then they are pissed if they misunderstood something, and now they look like an idiot in front of their team. And so anytime we have somebody who's like wants to go and they want to skip our process and they want to skip commitments that we look for during the sales process, it's when I go, whoa, time out. Like, nope, this is moving way, way, way too fast, way too fast. So I know it sounds kind of scary. Everyone wants to close. So when I see like, oh, wow, sales cycle length was only 3 days. Well, wait a minute. Our average sales cycle length is 36. Like
Yeah.
3 days shouldn't be celebrated. That's not okay. I get it if it's like, hey, it was 36 and now we got it down to 29. All right. All right. Like that sounds like you could still do all the work that
Right.
needs to happen in 29 days. That sounds reasonable. 3 days, that's alarming.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting is when you talk about that is you're right. You typically celebrate just any business that comes in, but again, we talked about before, like they're going to churn. It's going to be a bad experience, and then it just the amount of work oftentimes it has to be made up because to fill the gap or it oftentimes what rolls downhill, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the vendor or your buyer is like, hey, I bought this is what I thought you guys said I could do. You guys got to make that work, and now
Yeah.
you guys are left holding the bag because it's either like, well, we're either going to just let this guy or gal trash us for the next 9 months, or we're going to try to salvage something, right? Because it seems like that's where it's always left with the vendor, the service provider, the software vendor, et cetera, to kind of make things whole. I mean, that's how I
Yeah.
feel. We
Yeah.
took their money, and
Yeah.
now I've got to make magic happen, but sometimes you just can't. And so it's often worse, is what you're saying.
Oh yeah. I mean, and yeah, you're right. Like your brand's on the line, right? Your reputation. You want to do right by your customer. You're invested in this partnership. So you're going to go above and beyond. But then what kind of a strain are you putting on your customer success team or your delivery team? And how is that impacting their happiness, their work? Like if they leave, if they go through like having like 4 or 5 customers in a row that have this nightmarish onboarding experience because of misses in the sales process, they're not going to stick around. They're going to go work somewhere else. And so that win that you celebrated last quarter, is going to cost you an arm and a leg,
Yeah.
because now you got to
Yeah.
backfill that role and train that role. And so it might feel like, oh, this is a quick win, a quick celebration for you, but it has long lasting implications that can really hurt your bottom line.
Now, is it, I certainly see, friction sometimes when you're trying to get a customer to slow down in the sales process.
Hmm.
Like sometimes they're like, oh, I want a demo. And I'm of the opinion, like in the software world, a demo to me is actually what I call a solution presentation. Like I just don't log into the software and start clicking around because I have no idea like what your business problems are,
Hmm.
how our software solves your problem. So don't just expect me to pull up my software on the first call and just start clicking around, because it's like just like someone called it a harbor tour, just kind of
Yeah.
cruising around. You just don't know really what the heck you're showing.
Yeah.
And some people just, when they're like, no, I want to see the software, I'm like, I don't know what to show you, I don't even know what to tell you. And you can see the friction, right? Sometimes the pumping the brakes, and I don't know exactly everything in your sales process, but like is that similar? If you're trying to push them back a bit and say, no, we've got to have this meeting, this exercise, and just slow them down
Yeah.
to kind of go through the formal process.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just like in software sales, how, yeah, you do want to kind of guide them through, and you want to show them how using the tool is going to solve their specific, their unique problem. It's going to make it better for them. Um, in services sales, people might say, well, just send me your service catalog. I just want to see your price list. That's not the kind of relationship we have.
Yeah.
Then I know, well, you're just clearly looking at me the same way you would look at like a freelanced outsourced vendor. And that's not what we do. Like, that's not the kind of work that we do. And there are plenty of other people who want to work with us in the way that we want to work with
Right.
customers. And so sometimes we have to say, oh, it seems like we're maybe not a really good fit for you. And that's kind of fine. Same thing with like RFPs. So if we're invited to respond to, there's an RFP, we'll look at it, and if we think we might be a good fit, we'll say, hey, we think we could be a good fit, but let us explain to you what our process is and why it's important, and we need to be able to have these numbers of conversations with you. And if you can honor that, great, we're in. And if you can't, and it's just this blind kind of like just submit this 80-page deck, then we
Right.
pass. And it's, there was a time it was like 50-50, but it's improving, where more and more people are opening themselves up, and I'm seeing fewer like, and part of it's the industries we're in, but fewer like RFPs and more like, yeah, no, we just use this RFP to like organize our thoughts, and yeah, we're totally open to a conversation, even
Yeah.
though the
Yeah.
documentation may not say that explicitly. We're asking, and then that's a leg up in the relationship part, and getting us through the process too.
Right. Right. No, that's great. And I think like an extension of kind of the 2 points, the two rules that we've talked about is sometimes you have to fire a customer, right? Because there may be
Oh
some
yeah.
time where they want to leave, whether because of bad experience or whatnot, and you're trying to fix that. But there may be times when something happens that it just, they're no longer a good fit, right? Like, how do you deal with that? Because that does happen and should happen.
Yeah. So there have been two times in the last couple of years where I've had to tell a prospect who was like, send me a contract. I want to hire you. And I've had to say, I'm sorry, no. And it is really uncomfortable. It's really uncomfortable. Someone's like, I want to give you money. I'm like, yeah, no, we can't take it. And the way I approach it from that perspective is I say, I like to, just basically say to them, when we bring on a new customer, when we bring on a new client, we do so under this assumption that we're going to make you wildly successful. That's what we're here to do. And so if we feel that we cannot make you wildly successful, then we don't want to enter into this partnership, because ultimately, we know that your success is what matters more than just this contract for us to work
Right.
together.
Right.
And people, they don't take it well. It's I recently had a conversation. I mean, so they're arguing with me and like wanting to understand more. I mean, it's tricky, and there's a lot of emotions and personal other things, right? It's usually about something else. It's usually not about us. It's usually about
Right.
something else going on.
Yeah.
So, but we really have to kind of stay true to who we are and know, okay, this is how we know we can help. And I kind of put it back on us. Like, we don't have the skills, or we don't have this, or we're not set up to support you the way you need and want to be supported.
Right.
So, kind of putting it on us. The conversation after they've been a customer and it's really not working out, to be honest, Tom, it's like, it's usually more, it's like a breakup where you come to that conclusion like together,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And okay, clearly, like, you're unhappy with this, you're unhappy with that, and so I think it's time, kind of we part ways.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
really, it's happened like, again, like maybe like twice over the time I've been here. And but it doesn't, it really, it's not like a
Yeah, I
frequent
think that
thing.
just happens with any relationship of any, any kind. I mean, there's things change, things, just any number of things, right? Like, expectations are out of line, and we just have some customers, that ask the world of us and want to pay us nothing.
Yeah.
And then the idea of like saying, I can't really do that for X amount of dollars, like that's just crazy. Like nobody can. And it's like
Mhm.
offensive to them for them to, to hear that. And just some people have unrealistic expectations that you just never can make people happy. And my first job was at a car wash, and you wash your car, you drive around, and I would vacuum your inside and I wash your windows and wipe
Mhm.
everything down. And we had some customers, you could spend an hour inside their car working, top to bottom, and there would always be, they'd always come,
Yeah.
you know, point out something. They'd be unhappy, and it's just like they're miserable people, and
Yeah.
just like there's nothing you can do to make everybody happy. And I think you're right. Like eventually you'll kind of get there, and it's probably good for both to part, but it's nothing really. But I just thought that was kind of an interesting extension to, everything you're doing from marketing to sales to CS. And making sure you're doing everything right, and sometimes things can still sour, right? Just like
Yeah.
any anytime people are working together, there's an opportunity for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
And I should say like, usually if it's like an expectation around kind of scope or what they need, the challenge typically needs to be, it usually is around like, hey, we didn't really budget for that because you signed up for this, and so we can do this for you, but it'll cost X amount more, and this is why. And then they have a choice business decision to make. The times where we're really kind of terminating a relationship, it's usually like they've been abusive, they're berating the team, they're,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
very like gross, like unprofessional. So
I gotcha.
it comes with a lot of extra emotion because we're people delivering work. We're not robots. So we're not robots delivering work
Yeah,
to robots, right?
right.
There's those complexities. That's why it doesn't happen a lot, but we've met some interesting people for sure.
No, no, there always are. And I just think like just in the time we've had today, just being able to see you speak the entire spectrum from new business acquisition. I mean, we didn't touch a whole lot on marketing, demand gen stuff, but just all the way through the life cycle. And I can see, why you are a CRO, and I'd love to learn a little bit about how you kind of got into sales. I know you've got an interesting background, as a teacher, and so just love to learn how you kind
Yeah.
of got in there. I mean, kind of how you found your way. So take us back.
I was forced into sales now. No one no one's ever forced into anything, right? Um, or rarely, but I've always been a very like revenue focused, sort of sales focused marketer. I became a marketer when I was working in nonprofit professional theater. I worked for Arizona Theater Company. It was called marketing, the marketing team, but I ran the box offices in both Tucson and Phoenix, Arizona. I ran our telemarketing team, who is like OG cold callers, right? Like, um,
Come
you know,
down to this weekend's show, right?
yeah, and selling subscriptions or
Oh, okay.
trying to
Yep.
sell,
Membership.
like, someone bought a ticket once, and so can we get them to buy sign up for like a six play pass, and the place where the doom and gloom room often getting heard no. But really, I mean, I would walk into that office every day and look at like a printout of the ticket sales report from the night before. This is before a lot of really cool technology, and especially being nonprofit. Um, but in looking at that ticket sales report and then being like, all right, we now have X amount of inventory to sell, X amount of shows left, and what marketing changes do we need to happen so that we can try to hit these goals? Because if we don't hit the ticket goal, if we don't hit the goals, then we left to like furlough people or lay people off. And so very, very like the results driven
Right.
marketing to
Sure.
put like literally put butts in
Butts and
seats.
seats.
My job. Which then prepared me very well for SaaS startup life. So I joined Allbound after, there were a couple of software companies in between the theater and Allbound, but when I joined Allbound, I originally signed up to be the director of marketing, and I was in for like maybe a week, maybe, and our CEO was like, can you do sales too? What do you think? I'm like, sure, let's do it, So I just started like marketing by night, like doing kind of like late afternoon, evenings, weekends marketing. And then, because we were really early, we were pre-revenue, pre-product. We had an idea, right? Like I barely had a product demo. I had like
Right.
InVision designs. And then during the day, I was doing the battle demo we talked about at the beginning of the show. The like, let me take you on a tour
Yeah,
of my
right.
platform, and this is where this is, and this is where that is, because I didn't know what I was doing, you know. And that's how that's how I got started, and it
Wow.
was really cool because then I would have these calls and these sales calls, and I go, wait a minute, okay, like we got the buyer persona a little bit wrong on this persona, and like we got to make this change. And so it actually allowed us to, as an early stage organization, it allowed us to really iterate on our buyer personas, and it allowed us to get better product market fit way faster than we would have if there would have been two different people doing sales and
Right.
marketing.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense, because I mean, I think that's even at Nine Lenses. I mean, I talk to a lot of customers, and it just goes right into the product, because
Mhm.
that's where it all gets shaped, and you hear the good and the bad, and all that kind of stuff. And so um, then you went to SmartBug after that, right? So did you
Mhm.
land kind of in sales more so than marketing after that, or kind of you know are you
Yeah.
more a salesperson at heart doing marketing, or are you more of a marketer doing sales? Because I'm a salesperson that I'm learning marketing. So it does not come natural to me writing copy and certain things. The strategy part does, but gosh, there are a lot of domains in marketing.
I'm probably more of a marketer doing sales, but it's really hard. It's like when I was at Aldon, but right before I left, like my board was like, they wanted me to pick a lane. They're like, pick a lane. Like, which one do you want, right? And I'm like, no, I cannot pick, right? Cannot choose. And so SmartBug is awesome. It's the best of all of my worlds because I get to sell marketing services.
Yes,
So
yes,
so if I worked for a completely different technology, let's say I worked for a technology company that did like a med tech or health tech, company or educational technology or something like that, put me, well, no, put me in not educational technology, put like med tech, put me in marketing, right? Like put me in marketing, that makes the most sense for me. But if I've been the persona, put me in sales because I have the sales skills, but I also understand kind of the
yeah.
life, like the day to day of that persona, and that makes me a really good salesperson.
Hmm.
So that's why I'm exactly where I need to be, and
No,
why this
it's
works
great.
so well. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's it's amazing to see kind of all the skills kind of coming together here, and the history and the experience kind of lending itself. Um, and so I'm grateful for having you on the show today and just kind of learning your perspective. I got 2 pages worth of notes here, and I've got you on speed dial because the CS handoff thing is critical, especially for a SaaS company. I mean, for any company, but I mean, like SaaS is built on renewals. You can't scale if you don't, and even it sounds like you've somehow productized your services to renew in some capacity, which is awesome.
Hmm.
But please come back and visit us again. I want to stay in touch. And as a HubSpot, customer, it sounds like you'll be on my list of people as we look to scale some of that stuff too. So that's been awesome. So thank you very much,
Wonderful.
Jen.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Would love to come back and help in any way I can. And yeah, there are so many cool things, especially HubSpot just launched Operations Hub, which really basically it just takes the Sales Hub, the whole CRM, and it just puts it on steroids, and it's super cool. So pretty much anything you ever really wanted to do with your customer relationship management, you can do now, and it's really fun.
Wow.
So I'm enjoying it.
Fantastic. All right, well, thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to The Revenue Hustle. This episode has been brought to you by 9 Lenses. Close more deals with interactive assessments. Check them out at 9lenses.com. See you next time.